The morning mist clung to the earth like a shroud as hundreds of warriors emerged from the sacred forest of Irako. They moved in disciplined silence, their footsteps barely disturbing the dew-covered grass. At their head walked a woman whose presence commanded both fear and reverence. Amara stood at the boundary between the wild forest and the cultivated lands of Odujawa, her kingdom. Her kingdom. The words tasted both familiar and strange after 20 years. She wore leather armor adorned with forest markings, her locks wrapped in warrior braids, and a spear crafted from sacred Irako would rested in her hand. Behind her, an army of 300 warriors waited. Forest dwellers who had pledged their lives to her cause, villagers who had escaped Zainab's tyranny, and warriors seeking justice. The dawn light revealed the kingdom in the distance. Smoke rose from cooking fires in the villages, and beyond them, the palace of Odujawa gleamed with its white walls and golden domes. Amara's childhood home, the place where she had been loved, then betrayed. "My princess," whispered Kofi, her second in command, a former palace guard who had searched for her for years after her disappearance. "Your army awaits your word." Amara's eyes never left the palace. She could feel the ancestral spirit stirring around her, the forest magic pulsing through her veins. For 20 years, she had survived, trained, and built this moment. The frightened girl who had been left to die was gone. In her place stood a warrior queen. "They left me in that forest to die," Amara said, her voice carrying to the warriors behind her. "They told the kingdom I was dead. They mourned me with false tears while sitting on my father's throne, drinking from my mother's cups, and bleeding my people dry." She turned to face her army. Faces of every age looked back at her. Young warriors seeking glory, elderly villagers seeking justice, mothers wanting a better future for their children. "Today, we take back what was stolen. Not just a throne, but hope. Not just a kingdom, but freedom. 20 years ago, I was a princess. Today, I am your commander. And together, we will restore Odujawa to greatness." The warriors raised their weapons in silent salute. No war cries, no drums. Not yet. Stealth would be their first weapon. As Amara turned back toward the kingdom, she whispered a prayer her mother had taught her long ago. "Ancestors, guide my path. Let justice be swift and mercy be wise." The army began to move, shadows flowing from the forest toward the unsuspecting kingdom. The ghost princess had returned. "Hello, guys. Welcome to African Tales by Zion. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, share it with your friends, and most importantly, turn on the notification bell so you can get informed when I drop another amazing story. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. If you were abandoned in a deadly forest and survived for 20 years, would you choose revenge or justice when you returned? Let's dive in. 20 years earlier, Princess Amara woke to the sound of celebration echoing through the palace of Odujawa. Today was her 16th birthday, and the entire kingdom rejoiced. Servants rushed through the corridors with platters of food, musicians tuned their instruments in the courtyard, and the smell of roasting meat and spiced rice filled the air. She stretched in her bed, wrapped in fine cotton sheets dyed the royal purple of Odujawa. Sunlight streamed through the carved wooden shutters, painting patterns on the clay walls. Her mother's portrait hung opposite her bed. Queen Falasheo, who had died when Amara was only 8 years old. The artist had captured her mother's kind eyes and gentle smile perfectly. "Good morning, Mama," Amara whispered to the portrait, as she did every morning. "Wish me luck today." A sharp knock interrupted her reverie. "Princess Amara," called Binta, her handmaiden and childhood friend. "Your stepmother requests your presence in the throne room." Amara's smile faded slightly. Lady Zainab, her father, King Adebayo, had remarried 3 years ago, hoping to ease his loneliness and provide Amara with a mother's guidance. But Zainab was nothing like her mother. Where Queen Falasheo had been warm and nurturing, Zainab was cold and calculating. Her eyes never smiled, even when her mouth did. Still, today was a day of celebration. Amara pushed her doubts aside and dressed in her finest wrapper, deep blue fabric embroidered with gold thread. Binta helped arrange her hair in elaborate braids woven with cowrie shells. In the throne room, King Adebayo sat on his carved wooden throne, looking older than his 50 years. Gray streaked his beard, and worry lines creased his forehead. Beside him, on a slightly smaller throne, sat Zainab. She wore crimson robes that seemed to drink in the light, and her head wrap was adorned with precious stones. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was the beauty of a serpent, dangerous and mesmerizing. "Ah, my daughter!" King Adebayo's face brightened when he saw Amara. Come, we have a surprise for your birthday." Amara bowed respectfully to both her father and stepmother before approaching. "You honor me, father." 16 years old, the king said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you become. Strong, intelligent, compassionate. Everything a future queen should be." Zainab's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "For your birthday," the king continued, "we have arranged a grand hunting expedition in the sacred forest of Irako. You've been learning archery and tracking for years. Today, you shall lead your first royal hunt." Amara's heart leaped with excitement. The sacred forest was legendary, a vast wilderness where our ancestors had communed with spirits and where the greatest hunters proved their worth. "Thank you, father. This is a wonderful gift." Lady Zainab herself suggested it. King Adebayo said, beaming at his wife, "She thought it would be a perfect way to demonstrate your readiness to one-day rule." "How thoughtful of you, mother," Amara said, using the title reluctantly. She bowed to Zainab. Zainab's dark eyes studied her with an intensity that made Amara's skin prickle. "Every future queen must know the land she will rule," Zainab said smoothly. "The forest holds many lessons." By midday, the hunting party was assembled at the palace gates. 50 warriors and servants accompanied them, along with horses, hunting dogs, and supplies. Chief Ogunlade, the kingdom's master hunter, would lead the expedition along with 10 of the queen's personal guards, men who had come with Zainab from her homeland in the north. Amara mounted her horse, a beautiful chestnut mare named Ao. Benta handed her a water skin and whispered, "Be careful, my princess. The forest can be treacherous." "I'll be fine," Amara assured her friend. "I have the best hunters in Odujuwa with me." The journey to the sacred forest took 3 hours. They rode through villages where people came out to wave and cheer for their princess. Children ran alongside the horses, laughing and singing birthday songs. Amara waved back, her heart full of love for her people. The sacred forest loomed before them like a great green wall. Ancient Irako trees towered hundreds of feet into the air, their massive trunks wrapped in vines and moss. The forest floor was a carpet of ferns and flowers, and the air hummed with the songs of 1,000 birds. "The forest spirits dwell here," Chief Ogunlade said reverently as they entered. "We must show respect." They proceeded carefully, following game trails deeper into the wilderness. After an hour, they spotted a herd of antelope. Amara readied her bow, her heart pounding with excitement. She had practiced for years for a moment like this. "Steady," Chief Ogunlade whispered. "Wait for my signal." "Now!" shouted one of Zainab's guards suddenly. The antelope scattered. Amara released her arrow in confusion, missing completely. Before she could understand what was happening, the guards were shouting. The horses were panicking, and chaos erupted. "After them!" someone yelled. The princess must have her prize. In the confusion, Amara found herself separated from the main group, chasing after phantom sounds through the dense forest. Her horse stumbled over a root, and she had to dismount. When she turned around, she was alone. "Chief Ogunlade," she called out. "Hello." Silence. Even the birds had stopped singing. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. She began walking back the way she came, but the forest all looked the same. Every tree seemed identical, every path circular. The sun was setting, painting the forest in shades of blood and gold. Then she heard voices, Zainab's guards. Relief flooded through her. "I'm here," she called out, running toward the sound. She found them in a small clearing, but as she emerged from the trees, she saw their faces and knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. The guards stood in a semicircle, their expressions cold and hard. Behind them, she could see the rest of the hunting party in the distance, being led away. "What's happening?" Amara demanded, trying to sound authoritative despite the fear creeping into her voice. "Where's Chief Ogunlade?" The captain of the guards, a scarred man named Rashid, stepped forward. His hand rested on his sword hilt. "I'm sorry, Princess. We have our orders." "Orders? What orders?" "Take me back to the palace immediately." "The Queen's orders," Rashid said quietly. "You are not to return." The words hit Amara like a physical blow. "What? No, you're mistaken. My father. Your father will be told you were attacked by a wild animal. Very tragic. The kingdom will mourn, and Lady Zainab will comfort him in his grief." Horror washed over Amara as she understood. This was no accident. This was murder. "You can't do this. I'm the crown princess. When my father learns—" "Your father will learn nothing," Rashid interrupted. "And you will learn what the forest teaches those who are abandoned in it." He nodded to his man. "We leave her here. No food, no water, no weapons. The forest will do the rest." "Please," Amara begged, her royal dignity crumbling in the face of terror. "Please, I'll give you anything. Gold, land, titles." "The Queen has promised us more than you could ever offer," Rashid said. He gestured to his men, and they began walking away. "No, wait. You can't leave me here." Amara ran after them, but Rashid turned and shoved her roughly to the ground. "If you follow us, we have orders to kill you quickly. If you stay, you have a chance. The forest might show mercy." His eyes said he didn't believe that for a moment. "Goodbye, Princess." She watched them disappear into the trees, their torches growing smaller and smaller until darkness swallowed them completely. Amara sat in the clearing as night fell, surrounded by sounds she didn't recognize. Howls echoed in the distance. Branches cracked. Eyes seemed to watch from every shadow. The protected princess, who had never spent a night outside palace walls, was alone in the most dangerous forest in the kingdom, and no one was coming to save her. She curled into a ball beneath a massive tree, hugging her knees to her chest. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered into the darkness, "Mama, if your spirit is out there, please help me." The forest offered no answer except the whisper of wind through leaves and the distant cry of a night bird. Princess Amara's old life was over. Survival had begun. What will happen to Amara in the terrifying sacred forest? Will she survive her first night alone? Find out in next chapter. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story from African Tales by Zion. Dawn came slowly to the sacred forest, light filtering through the canopy in thin golden streams. Amara woke with a start, her body stiff and aching from sleeping on the hard ground. For a brief, blessed moment, she thought she was in her palace bed. Then reality crashed back. She was alone, abandoned, left to die. Her throat burned with thirst, and her stomach cramped with hunger. She stood on shaky legs, brushing dirt and leaves from her once fine wrapper. The beautiful birthday dress was now torn and stained. Her elaborate braids had come partially undone. Cowrie shells scattered around her like fallen stars. "Think, Amara," she told herself, trying to calm her racing heart. "Father taught you about survival. What did he say? Water. She needed water first." She listened carefully and heard the distant sound of running water, a stream. Perhaps. She walked toward it, pushing through ferns and ducking under low-hanging branches. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed to hide danger. She found the stream after an hour of searching. The water ran clear and cold over smooth stones. Amara fell to her knees and drank deeply, then splashed water on her face. The cold shocked her fully awake. As she sat by the stream, she took stock of her situation. She had no weapons, no food, and no idea which direction led back to civilization. The forest stretched in all directions, vast and indifferent to her suffering. She could wander for days and only go deeper into the wilderness. "I won't die here," she said aloud, needing to hear determination in her voice. "Zainab wants me dead, but I will survive. I will find my way home, and I will tell Father what she did." But first, she needed to live through today. Amara remembered lessons from Chief Ogunlade about edible plants. She found banana plants growing wild and ate the fruit ravenously. She discovered palm nuts and cracked them open with rocks. It wasn't palace food, but it kept the gnawing hunger at bay. As the day wore on, she tried to find a path out of forest. But every direction looked the same, and by nightfall, she was hopelessly lost. Worse, she heard sounds that terrified her, the roar of a big cat, the crashing of something large through the undergrowth, howls that sounded almost human. On her second night, huddled beneath a different tree, Amara finally broke. She sobbed until she had no tears left, mourning not just her situation, but everything she'd lost. Her father, who didn't know she still lived. Her home, her future as queen, everything stolen by Zainab's ambition. Why? She screamed into the darkness. Why did you hate me so much? The forest seemed to answer with a rustling of leaves, but not from the wind. Amara froze. Something was moving through the undergrowth toward her. Something big. She scrambled to her feet, looking for somewhere to run, but was too dark to see. The rustling grew closer. Leaves parted, and a massive shape emerged from the shadows. A leopard, its spots barely visible in the moonlight, its eyes glowing like amber coals. Amara's breath caught in her throat. She had no weapons, no escape. The leopard moved closer, muscles rippling beneath its spotted coat. This was how she would die. Not from starvation or thirst, but torn apart by one of the forest's apex predators. So, this is your mercy, Zainab, Amara whispered, quick and brutal. The leopard stopped 3 paces away. It tilted its head, studying her with an intelligence that seemed almost human. Then it did something Amara never expected. It sat down and simply watched her. They stared at each other for what felt like hours. The leopard made no move to attack. It just sat there, as if waiting for something. Finally, Amara's exhaustion overcame her fear, and she slumped back against the tree. If the leopard was going to kill her, there was nothing she'd do about it. She woke at dawn to find the leopard gone. In its place was the carcass of a small antelope, still warm. The leopard had hunted and left a kill for her. Amara stared at the gift in disbelief. Why would a predator feed her? Unless the stories were true. The story said the sacred forest was protected by ancestral spirits who sometimes took animal form. Could it be? Thank you, she whispered to the forest. Thank you, ancestors. Using sharp stones, she managed to cut meat from the carcass and eat it raw. It was the best meal she'd had in 2 days. Strengthened, she continued her search for a way out of the forest, but now she felt less alone. Something was watching over her. 3 more days passed. Amara learned to find food, to build crude shelters from branches and leaves, to read the forest signs. The leopard appeared each night, always watching, never threatening. Other animals seemed to accept her presence. Monkeys dropped fruit for her. Birds led her to water sources. But on the 7th night, as Amara huddled in her shelter during a tremendous rainstorm, she finally admitted the truth to herself. She was never getting out. The forest was too vast, too confusing. She could wander forever and never find the edge. She would die here, just as Zainab had planned. As if summoning her by thought, a voice cut through the storm. "Child, why do you weep?" Amara's head snapped up. Standing at the edge of her shelter was an old woman, impossibly ancient, her face lined with 1,000 wrinkles. She wore simple brown robes and leaned on a twisted walking stick. Her eyes, though clouded with age, seemed to see everything. Who are you?" Amara stammered. "I am Mama Kemi," the old woman said. "I heard the forest speaking of you. A princess, abandoned and alone. The spirits have been protecting you, child, but they cannot teach you to survive. That is my task." "You live here? In the forest?" "I have lived here for 50 years, Mama Kemi said. "The forest is my home, and I am its keeper. Come, child, you cannot stay in this shelter. The rain will flood it soon. Follow me." Too exhausted to question or resist, Amara followed the old woman through the storm. They walked for what seemed like miles, the old woman moving with surprising speed despite her age. Finally, they arrived at a clearing where a small hut stood, constructed from forest materials but sturdy and weatherproof. Inside, a fire burned in a clay hearth, impossible given the rain outside. Herbs hung from the ceiling, and strange carved figures lined the walls. It smelled of earth and smoke and something else, something ancient and powerful. "Sit," Mama Kemi commanded. "Dry yourself. Then we will talk about why you are here and what you will become." Amara obeyed, sitting by the fire while Mama Kemi prepared a hot tea from forest herbs. The warmth seeped into her bones, and for the first time in a week, she felt safe. "The Step Queen tried to kill me," Amara said quietly. "She want my throne." "Yes," Mama Kemi said simply. "I know. The spirits showed me your story. But what you do not know, child, is that she has succeeded. Your father was told you were killed by a lion. The kingdom mourned for a month. Then Zainab convinced him to name her regent until he produces a male heir. She has control of Oduduwa now." The word shattered Amara's last hope. "Then I have nothing. No home, no title, no father." "You have something far more valuable," Mama Kemi interrupted. "You have time. Time to learn, to grow, to become strong. The princess who was abandoned here would never have defeated Zainab, but the woman you will become," her smile was fierce, "that woman will shake the foundations of that false queen's power." "I don't understand." "You will train with me," Mama Kemi said. "I will teach you the old ways, the warrior paths that your ancestors walked before palaces and thrones existed. I will teach you to fight, to survive, to lead. And when you are ready, when you are forged into something stronger than steel, you will return to Oduduwa, not as a frightened girl, but as a warrior queen." Amara looked into the old woman's eyes and saw something she had lost a week ago: hope. "How long will it take?" "As long as it takes," Mama Kemi said. "Months, years, a decade if necessary. But I promise you this, child. When you walk out of this forest, Zainab will regret the day she left you here." Outside the hut, the leopard sat in the rain, its amber eyes glowing in the darkness. It was watching over them, as it would for many years to come. Amara's transformation had begun. Amara has found mentor, but her training has just begun. What challenges await her in the sacred forest? How will she transform from princess to warrior? Find out in next chapter. If you're loving this epic tale of survival and revenge, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion for more amazing stories. Year 1. Amara woke before dawn every day, her muscles screaming in protest. Mama Kemi's training was brutal, more punishing than anything she'd endured in her sheltered palace life. They started with basic survival skills that went far beyond what Amara had stumbled upon in her first desperate week. "You must become one with the forest," Mama Kemi said as they tracked a bush pig through dense undergrowth. "Every broken twig tells a story. Every bird call carries information. The forest speaks to those who know how to listen." Amara learned to read tracks, to identify hundreds of plants, which could heal, which could poison, which could sustain life. She learned to move silently through the forest, to climb trees like the monkeys, to swim in the hidden streams and pools. Her soft palace hand became calloused and strong. But the physical training was only the beginning. "Now you learn to fight," Mama Kemi announced one morning, handing Amara a wooden staff. "Princess lessons taught you courtly dances. I will teach you the dance of warriors." For months, they drilled with staffs, then spears, then the bow and arrow. Mama Kemi, despite her age, moved with the fluid grace of a much younger woman. She claimed the forest spirits lent her strength, and Amara believed it. There was no other explanation for how a woman who looked ancient could disarm her so easily. "Again!" Mama Kemi would shout after knocking Amara to the ground for the 100th time. A queen who falls must learn to rise quickly. By the end of the first year, Amara could hunt with efficiency, fight with competence, and survive indefinitely in the wilderness. But she was still just a student, still learning. Year 5, the young woman who trained in the forest clearing bore little resemblance to the princess who had been abandoned there. Amara's body had transformed into pure muscle and sinew. Scars crisscrossed her arms and legs, marks of lessons learned the hard way. Her once soft hands now gripped weapons with deadly familiarity. "You are ready to meet the others," Mama Kemi said one evening. "Others." Amara looked up from sharpening her spear. a weapon she had crafted herself from sacred Irako wood. That night, Mama Kemi led her deep into the forest to a hidden grove. There, Amara discovered she wasn't alone. A dozen people lived in the depths of the sacred forest, outcasts, refugees, and those who had chosen to leave civilization behind. Among them was Kofi, a former palace guard who had refused to believe the story of Amara's death. He had searched for her for 2 years before the forest had claimed him too. When he saw her alive, tears streamed down his face. "Princess," he breathed, falling to his knees. "I knew you lived. I felt it in my bones." "Not princess anymore," Amara said, helping him up. "Just Amara, a student of the forest." But to Kofi and the others, she would always be their princess. As word spread to the forest hidden community that King Adebayo's daughter had survived, more people came, some who had escaped Zainab's cruelty, others seeking purpose and justice. "You are building an army without meaning to," Mama Kemi observed with satisfaction. "The spirits always know." Amara began training the newcomers, passing on what Mama Kemi had taught her. The old woman had given her more than survival skills. She had given her purpose. Year 10. A trader from Odujua stumbled into their forest settlement, half dead from dehydration and leopard wounds. They nursed him back to health, and when he was well enough to speak, he brought news from the kingdom. King Adebayo was dead. Amara felt the words like a spear through her heart. "How?" she whispered. "Fever," they said. The trader replied. "Very sudden. He had been in good health. Then took ill overnight. Dead within 3 days." "Poison," Mama Kemi said quietly. "I know the signs. Zainab has taken what she wanted most." The trader continued. "Queen Zainab now rules as sole monarch. She claims the kings will left everything to her. The people suffer under heavy taxes. Dissenters disappear in the night. The kingdom that was once prosperous now groans under her fist." Amara stood abruptly, her hand go at her spear. "Then we march. Now, we take back what is mine." "No," Mama Kemi said firmly. "You are not ready. My father is dead. My people suffer. And if you march now with your dozen warriors, you will die, and they will die, and nothing will change." The old woman's voice cracked like thunder. "Zainab has a palace guard, the army, the wealth of the kingdom. You have anger and grief. That is not enough to win a war." Amara wanted to argue, but she knew Mama Kemi was right. 12 warriors, no matter how skilled, could not overcome a kingdom's army. "What do I need?" she asked through gritted teeth. "More time, more warriors, more wisdom." Mama Kemi placed a hand on her shoulder. "And you need to let your grief transform into something useful. Your father loved you. Honor him by being patient and smart, not reckless and dead." Year 15. The forest settlement had grown into something remarkable. Over 100 people now called a home. Refugees from Zainab's cruelty, former soldiers disillusioned with serving a tyrant, villagers whose homes had been burned for failing to pay taxes. Amara had become their unquestioned leader. At 31 years old, she was no longer a girl playing at war, but a seasoned warrior and tactician. She had led hunting parties that took down elephants, repelled bandit attacks on their settlement, and mediated disputes with a wisdom that would have made her father proud. But still, Mama Kemi said she wasn't ready. "Why?" Amara demanded after another year of waiting. "We have warriors now. We have weapons. We have people who would die for our cause. What more do I need?" "You need to understand your enemy," Mama Kemi said. "What drives Zainab? Why did she crave power so desperately that she would kill for it?" Amara had never considered this. Zainab was simply evil in her mind, a villain who needed to be defeated. But Mama Kemi pushed her to think deeper. Over the following years, Amara learned about Zainab's past from refugees who came from the north. Zainab had been a minor noble's daughter, married off to King Adebayo as a political alliance. She had been powerless her whole life, traded like property between men. When she came to Odujua, she saw a chance to claim power for herself, to never be powerless again. Does that excuse what she did? Amara asked. "Never," Mama Kemi replied. "But understanding your enemy makes you a better strategist." Zainab fears powerlessness. That fear drives her to cruel extremes. Use that knowledge. Year 20. The morning mist clung to the ground as Amara stood before her assembled warriors. 300 strong now. Men and women who had flocked to her banner over the years, drawn by hope and the promise of justice. They were no longer a hidden settlement, but an army trained and ready. Mama Kemi, now impossibly ancient at over 100 years old, stood beside her. The old woman who had saved a frightened princess had become Amara's closest advisor and friend. "It is time," Mama Kemi said simply. Amara looked at her in surprise. After years of counseling patience, the sudden change felt momentous. "You're certain?" "The spirits have shown me the path ahead." Zainab has grown complacent. She believes herself untouchable. The people are ready to rise. They just need a spark. You will be that spark. Kofi, now graying at the temples but still strong, stepped forward. "My princess, we have waited long for this day. The warriors are ready. We would follow you into the ancestors' realm itself if you commanded it." Amara looked at the faces around her. People who had lost everything to Zainab's greed, who had trained for years for this moment. She thought of her father, of her mother, of the kingdom suffering under tyranny. "Then we march," she said, her voice carrying across the assembly. "But we do not march as raiders or rebels. We march as liberators. We fight only those who stand against us. We protect the innocent. We show the people that we come not to conquer, but to restore what was stolen." The warriors struck their spears against the ground in approval, a rhythmic thunder that echoed through the forest. That night, Amara sat with Mama Kemi in the old woman's hut one last time. "Will you come with us?" she asked. Mama Kemi shook her head. "My place is here in the forest, but I will watch over you as I always have. The spirits will guide your path." She pressed something into Amara's hand, a small carved figure of a leopard. "Your mother's spirit has been with you all along. Now she will stand beside you in battle." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Mama Kemi, for everything, for saving my life, for teaching me, for giving me purpose. You saved yourself, child. I merely showed you how." The old woman smiled. "Now go. Take back your kingdom. Make it better than it was before." As dawn broke over the sacred forest, the army assembled at the forest's edge. They stood in perfect formation, weapons ready, faces set with determination. At their head, Princess Amara, no longer a princess, but not yet a queen, raised her spear to sky. "For Oduduwa," she cried. "For Oduduwa." 300 voices answered as one. The march had begun. Behind them, unseen except by Amara, the great leopard that had watched over her for 20 years padded alongside the army. The forest spirits were coming to war, and in her palace, surrounded by luxury built on the suffering of others, Queen Zainab had no idea that the ghost she had created was coming home. The wait is over. Amara and her army march on the kingdom. But how will she infiltrate her own home? What awaits her in Oduduwa after 20 years? Find out in next chapter. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion and turn on notifications, so you're here for every moment of Amara's revenge. The kingdom of Oduduwa had changed in 20 years, and not for the better. As Amara's scouts reported back, she learned the extent of Zainab's corruption. Villages that had once been prosperous now struggled under crushing taxes. The queen's guards extorted protection fees from merchants. Those who spoke against the crown vanished in the night, their families too terrified to ask questions. "We cannot simply march on the palace," Amara told her war council as they camped in the hills overlooking the kingdom. "Zainab has nearly 1,000 soldiers. If we attack directly, we may win, but hundreds will die, soldiers who are only following orders and innocent people caught in the crossfire." "Then what do you propose?" asked Kofi. Amara smiled, a plan forming in her mind. "We don't attack the palace. We attack her support. If we can turn the people against her, show them there's another way, Zainab's power will crumble from within." Over the next several days, small groups of Amara's warriors infiltrated Oduduwa. They moved through villages at night, leaving gifts of food and supplies for struggling families. They wore no identifying marks, melted into shadows, and disappeared before anyone could ask who they were. But they left behind a symbol, a carved leopard, just like the one Mama Kemi had given Amara. And with each leopard came a message, whispered and repeated. The true princess lives. Justice comes. The effect was electric. Within a week, the entire kingdom buzzed with rumors. Some said it was a trick, a cruel joke. Others dared to hope that Princess Amara, mourned for 20 years, had somehow survived. The leopard became a symbol of resistance, carved into doors and drawn in the dirt of marketplaces. Zainab heard the rumors and raged. Impossible! She screamed at her council. The girl died 20 years ago. I saw to it myself. Rashid, now the commander of the palace guard, shifted uncomfortably. He had been there the night they abandoned Amara in the forest. Your Majesty, perhaps it is just troublemakers using the old princess's name to stir rebellion. Then find them. Zainab snarled. Find them and make examples of them. I want their heads on spikes at every gate. But the troublemakers were ghosts. Every time the guards raided a village suspected of harboring rebels, they found nothing. The leopard symbols multiplied. The whispers grew louder. Meanwhile, Amara herself had entered the capital city of Odujua, disguised as a traveling merchant. She wore simple clothes, her warrior braids hidden beneath a headscarf, her face aged by sun and hardship. No one recognized the soft princess in this weather-worn woman. She walked through the marketplace that she had visited as a child with her mother, and her heart broke. Where there had been laughter and prosperity, now there was fear and poverty. Merchants sold their wares with defeated expressions. Children begged for scraps. Royal guards strutted through the crowds, taking what they wanted without payment. You there! A guard shouted at an elderly fruit seller. Tax inspection. The old woman's hands trembled as she opened her coin purse. Please, sir, I barely made enough to feed my grandchildren today. Not my problem. The guard dumped her coins into his own pouch, then swept half her fruit into a sack. Queen's tribute. Amara's hand went to the knife hidden in her belt, but she forced herself to remain still. Not yet. Not here. This guard was a symptom, not the disease. That evening, she found lodging at a small inn near the palace. The innkeeper, a woman named Halima, studied her with curious eyes as she served dinner. You're not from around here, Halima said. It wasn't a question. I'm a trader, Amar replied carefully. I travel widely. Then perhaps you've heard the rumors about the princess? Amara's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice neutral. I've heard whispers. Do you believe them? Halima glanced around to make sure they were alone, then leaned in close. I was a palace servant 20 years ago. I served Princess Amara herself. A sweet child, always kind to everyone, from the highest noble to the lowest servant. When they said she was killed by a lion, I wept for days. You don't think it was a lion, Amara said softly. I think Queen Zainab wanted that throne badly enough to do anything for it. Halima's eyes hardened. And I think if Princess Amara somehow survived, if she came back to take what's rightfully hers, there are many in this kingdom who would rise to support her. That would be treason, Amara pointed out, only if she loses. Halima smiled grimly. Tell me, traveler, in your journeys, have you seen a leopard carved in doorways? Amara pulled the carved leopard from her pouch and placed it on the table between them. Halima's eyes widened. Then, slowly, she knelt. My princess. Rise, Halima, please. Amara helped the woman to her feet, emotion thick in her throat. You remember me? You have your mother's eyes. I would know them anywhere. Tears streamed down Halima's face. You survived. All these years, you survived. With help, Amara said, and now I need more help. I need to know everything about the palace, about Zainab's forces, about who might stand with us when the time comes. Halima nodded eagerly. There are many of us who remember the old days, who hate what Zainab has done to our kingdom. We've been waiting for a spark. You are that spark, princess. Over the next week, Halima introduced Amara to a network of resistance. Former palace servants, merchants tired of extortion, soldiers disgusted by the orders they were forced to follow. They met in secret, in basement rooms and abandoned buildings, planning and preparing. The queen's birthday celebration is in 3 days, said Oladipo, a former palace guard. She's ordered a massive feast. Every noble in the kingdom will be there, along with most of the garrison. It's tradition. The gates are open and common people are allowed into the outer courtyard to receive the queen's generous gifts, which are trinkets that cost nothing while she hoards a kingdom's wealth, spat another conspirator. Amara studied the crude map of the palace they had drawn. She knew these halls from childhood, but much had changed. If we're going to move, that's our best opportunity. The garrison will be focused on the celebration, not on security. And if we can reach the throne room, you'll need to get into the palace first, Oladipo pointed out. Security will be tight, even during the celebration. Not for palace servants, Halima said. I still have my old uniform, and I know at least a dozen former servants who would help. We can get you inside, princess. The plan came together piece by piece. On the day of the celebration, Amara's warriors would position themselves throughout the city, ready to act on her signal. She would infiltrate the palace with a small group of trusted allies. When the moment was right, she would reveal herself and confront Zainab before the assembled nobles, witnesses who could spread the word of what truly happened 20 years ago. And if Zainab doesn't confess? Kofi asked. If she denies everything, then we take the palace by force, Amara said grimly. But I believe she will confess. Zainab's greatest strength is also her weakness, her pride. She won't be able to resist gloating about how she outwitted everyone. The day of the celebration arrived. The palace was decorated with banners and flowers. Music filled the air, and long tables groaned under the weight of feast foods, a display of wealth while the kingdom starved. It made Amara sick, dressed in a servant's simple uniform, her face partially hidden by a serving scarf. Amara entered the palace where she had been born. The halls were familiar, yet alien. Where there had been warmth, now there was cold opulence. Zainab had redecorated everything in her preferred style, harsh and intimidating. Halima led a group of 5 other servants, actually Amara's best warriors, through the service corridors. They carried trays of food and wine, their weapons hidden beneath their clothes. Palace guards barely glanced at them. Servants were invisible in places like this. In the throne room, Queen Zainab held court. She sat on King Adebayo's throne, which she had gilded and studded with gems until it was barely recognizable. She wore a crown so heavy with jewels, it seemed a wonder her neck could support it. Nobles clustered around her, offering false praise and hoping for favor. Zainab had aged in 20 years, but she was still beautiful in a severe way. Her face was harder now, lines of cruelty etched around her mouth and eyes. She looked at her subjects with barely concealed contempt. "Bring more wine," she commanded, snapping her fingers. This was Amara's cue. She lifted a tray of wine goblets and walked toward the throne, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Each step brought her closer to the woman who had destroyed her life. She approached the throne and knelt, offering the tray with her head bowed. Finally, a servant who knows her place, Zainab said mockingly, taking a goblet. "The rest of you could learn." She stopped mid-sentence. Amara had raised her head, pulling away the scarf that hid her face. For a long moment, Zainab simply stared. The color drained from her face, as if she'd seen a ghost. Because, in a way, she had. "Hello, stepmother," Amara said quietly. "Did you miss me?" The goblet slipped from Zainab's fingers and shattered on the floor. Wine spread across the polished stones like blood. The room fell silent, every eye turning to see what had caused the queen's reaction. "Impossible," Zainab whispered. "You're dead. You've been dead for 20 years. "No," Amara said, standing to her full height. "I've been alive for 20 years. Surviving in the forest you left me in. Training. Waiting. Getting stronger." She let her voice carry across the throne room. "And now I've come home to reclaim what you stole from me." Whispers exploded through the crowd. Nobles gasped and pointed. Palace guards reached for weapons but hesitated, unsure what to do. "Seize her," Zainab shrieked, her composure shattering. "She's an imposter, a rebel trying to destabilize the kingdom." "Am I?" Amara asked calmly. She held up her hand, showing a ring, her mother's ring, which she had worn the day she was abandoned. This was Queen Falasheo's betrothal ring. I wore it the day your guards left me in the sacred forest to die. Do you remember, stepmother? Or should I call you what you really are, a murderer and a usurper? Lies! Zainab stood, pointing an accusing finger. Kill her. Now! But the guards didn't move. They stared at Amara, seeing the resemblance to the old king, seeing the truth written in her face and bearing. I am Amara, daughter of King Adebayo and Queen Falasheo, rightful heir to the throne of Odujawa. Amara's voice rang out strong and clear. 20 years ago, this woman conspired to murder me so she could steal my crown. Her guards, some of whom still serve in this palace, took me into the sacred forest and abandoned me there, believing I would die. She turned to address the stunned nobles. But I didn't die. The forest spirits protected me. I survived. I trained. And I learned what this woman has done to our kingdom in my absence. The suffering, the corruption, the fear, all of it ends today. She lies. Zainab screamed again, but her voice was shrill with panic now. Rashid, Commander Rashid, tell them she lies. The old commander pushed through the crowd, his face ashen. He looked at Amara, and she saw recognition and guilt war in his eyes. Tell them, Zainab commanded. Tell them the princess died 20 years ago. Rashid was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he fell to one knee. Forgive me, princess. I followed orders I should have refused. I left you in that forest. I thought you would die quickly, mercifully. I am a coward and a traitor to the crown. His confession broke the dam. Other guards who had been there that night knelt as well. Then servants who remembered Amara. Then nobles who had suffered under Zainab's rule, but been too afraid to act. No! Zainab's voice was desperate now. No, you fools. She's nobody. I am your queen. You were never our queen, Amara said quietly. You were a thief who murdered for power. But your reign ends now. Outside, the sound of cheering erupted. Kofi and the warriors had revealed themselves to people, and the word was spreading. The true princess lived. The crowd in the outer courtyard took up the chant. Amara, Amara, Amara. Zainab looked around wildly, seeing her power crumbling. In a last desperate act, she drew a hidden dagger and lunged at Amara. But Amara was no longer the frightened 16-year-old girl. She was a warrior trained by the forest itself. She sidestepped easily, caught Zainab's wrist, and twisted. The dagger clattered to the floor. You could have been a good queen, Amara said, holding Zainab's gaze. You could have used your position to help people, to make a difference. Instead, you let fear and greed consume you. That's the real tragedy. I was powerless my whole life, Zainab hissed. When I finally had the chance to take control, to never be weak again. You became what you feared most, Amara interrupted. A tyrant who others plot against and hate. True power doesn't come from fear, stepmother. It comes from love and justice. That's something you never understood. She released Zainab and stepped back. Take her to the cells. She will be tried for her crimes, murder, theft, and tyranny. Let justice decide her fate, not revenge. As guards, now loyal to their true princess, led Zainab away. The former queen's last words echoed to the throne room. You think you've won, but ruling is harder than surviving. You'll fail. You'll become just like me. Amara watched her go, then turned to face the assembled nobles and servants. Outside, her warriors were entering the palace, and the common people were flooding in, eager to see if the rumors were true. She climbed the steps to her father's throne, but didn't sit. Not yet. She had returned. She had confronted her enemy, but the hardest part was still ahead, rebuilding a broken kingdom and proving she could be the queen her people needed. But as she looked at the faces before her, hopeful, afraid, uncertain, but willing to believe, she felt Mama Kemi's wisdom, her mother's love, and her father's strength flowing through her. She was ready. Amara has reclaimed her palace and exposed Zainab's crimes. But can she restore the kingdom and become the queen her people need? Don't miss the epic conclusion in next chapter. Like this video, subscribe to African Tales by Zion, and drop a comment telling us what you think should happen to Zainab. The dawn after Amara's return found the palace in controlled chaos. Nobles who had supported Zainab scrambled to prove their loyalty to the restored princess. Servants cleaned away 20 years of oppression, taking down Zainab's harsh decorations and restoring the palace to its former warmth. In the courtyard, Amara's warriors maintained order while the people of Oduduwa celebrated in the streets. But Amara herself stood in her father's private chamber, untouched since his death, and wept. The room still smelled faintly of him, sandalwood and pipe tobacco. His robes hung in the wardrobe. His favorite books lined the shelves. A portrait of her mother hung above the bed, and beside it, a newer painting of Amara herself as a child. "He never forgot you," Halima said softly from the doorway. "Even when Zainab pressured him to remove your portraits. To stop mourning, he kept this room as a shrine to his lost daughter. He came here every day to remember you." Amara touched her father's desk, running her fingers over the worn wood. "I should have found a way to contact him, to let him know I was alive. Zainab would have killed him the moment she knew you survived," Halima said gently. "You know that. Your patience, your caution, it kept both of you safe as long as possible. But not long enough." Amara wiped her tears. "He died believing I was dead, believing his daughter had been killed. That's the cruelest part of Zainab's crime. She stole not just my life, but his peace." A knock at the door interrupted them. Kofi entered, his expression grave. "Princess, the council has assembled. They're waiting for you in the throne room." Amara took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and left her father's chamber. It was time to be a queen, not a grieving daughter. The throne room was packed. Every noble family, every guild master, every village elder who could make the journey to the capital had come to witness history. At the center of it all, in chains, knelt Zainab. The former queen looked smaller somehow, stripped of her jewels and fine clothes, wearing simple prison garb. Amara took her place on the throne, her father's throne, her mother's throne, her throne. It felt right in a way nothing had for 20 years. "People of Oduduwa," she began, her voice carrying through the vast room, "we are here to witness justice. Queen Zainab stands accused of conspiracy to commit murder, usurpation of the crown, and tyranny against the people. How do you plead?" For a moment, Amara thought Zainab would remain silent. Then the older woman laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Plead? What's the point? You've already decided my fate." "The people will decide your fate," Amara corrected. "I will hear testimony, evidence, and then a vote will be taken by the council of elders and nobles. This is how justice works in Oduduwa, through law, not the whim of a single ruler." "How noble," Zainab sneered. "You think that makes you different from me? You won through force, through an army. You're no different than I am. You just have a better story." "I am different," Amara said firmly, "because I could have killed you yesterday. I had every right, every reason. You murdered my father, you tried to murder me, you oppressed my people. But I didn't take your life. I chose justice instead of revenge. That's the difference between a tyrant and a queen." Over the next hours, testimony was heard. Rashid confessed his role in the abandonment, showing the council the orders he had received directly from Zainab. Former servants testified about suspicious deaths and disappearances. The royal physician, his conscience finally overcoming his fear, presented evidence that King Adebayo had been poisoned, slowly, over many months, to make it appear natural. With each revelation, Zainab's face grew harder, more defiant. She refused to show remorse, refused to admit wrongdoing. Finally, the evidence phase concluded. The council withdrew to deliberate. Amara stepped down from the throne and approached Zainab, waving away the guards who moved to stop her. "Why?" Amara asked quietly. "That's what I still don't understand. You could have been my stepmother in truth. You could have guided me, advised me, shared power. Why did you need to take everything?" For the first time, something human flickered in Zainab's eyes. "You were born with everything I had to fight for. A kingdom, a throne, people's love, all yours by accident of birth. Do you know what it's like to be powerless? To be traded like property, married off to a man twice your age, expected to smile and be grateful. So you kill for power?" "I survived," Zainab corrected. I did what I had to do to never be powerless again. You, with your forest spirits and your loyal warriors and your people's love, you don't understand what it means to have nothing. You're wrong, Amara said softly. I understand exactly what it means to have nothing. I was left alone in a forest to die, with nothing but fear and desperation. But I chose to become something better than my circumstances. You chose to become something worse. Easy words for someone born a princess. I wasn't born a princess, Amar replied. I was born a baby, like everyone else. I became a princess through my parents' love and position. Then I became a victim through your cruelty. Then I became a survivor through my own will and the help of others. And now I'm choosing to become a queen who serves her people, not one who exploits them. We always have choices, Zainab. You made yours. The council returned before Zainab could respond. The head elder, Baba Ogun, spoke for them all. We have reached a verdict. Lady Zainab is guilty of all charges. The penalty for regicide and attempted regicide is death. However, he paused, looking at Amara. The decision of how to carry out justice falls to you, princess. What is your judgment? The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Amara. She could feel the weight of the moment. Her first true act as ruler of Oduduwa. What she decided now would set the tone for her entire reign. Death is a traditional punishment, Amara said slowly. And it is what many of you want, what you feel is deserved. But I have learned something in my years away from this palace. Revenge and justice are not the same thing. Revenge is quick satisfaction that changes nothing. Justice is harder, slower, but it builds something better. She stood and addressed the assembly. Zainab's crime was hoarding power and wealth while the people suffered. So her punishment will be to live without either. She is stripped of all titles, all property, all wealth. She will be exiled to a remote village on our kingdom's border, where she will live as a common woman, dependent on the kindness of others for her survival. She will experience the powerlessness she claimed to fear, and perhaps in time she will understand what she became. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some looked satisfied, others disappointed. Zainab herself looked stunned. "You're letting me live?" she whispered. "I'm giving you what you claimed you never had, a choice about what kind of person you become." Amar replied, "Use it wisely." As guards led Zainab away to prepare for exile, Baba Ogun approached Amara. "That was a bold decision, princess. Some will say you were too merciful." "Perhaps," Amara acknowledged, "but my father always said that a kingdom is judged not by how it treats the powerful, but by how it treats the powerless. If I had ordered her death, I would be perpetuating the cycle of violence. This way, the cycle end with me." The elder smiled. "Your father would be proud. Which brings us to the next matter, your coronation. The kingdom needs a queen, not just a princess. Will you accept the crown?" Amara looked around the throne room, at the nobles waiting for her answer, at Kofi and her warriors standing proud, at Halima and the servants who had risked everything to help her. Beyond the palace walls, she could hear the people of Oduduwa celebrating, hoping for a better future. "I will," she said, "but not the old way. Not a coronation of jewels and empty ceremony. I want every village in Oduduwa to send representatives. I want to hear what the people need, what they want from their queen, and I want to make promises I intend to keep. That could take weeks to organize," Baba Ogun pointed out. "Then it takes weeks. The kingdom has waited 20 years for justice. They can wait a few more weeks for a queen who listens." Over the following month, Amara worked tirelessly. She traveled to every region of Oduduwa, seeing firsthand the damage Zainab's rule had caused. She met with farmers whose lands had been overtaxed, merchants whose businesses had been extorted, families whose loved ones had disappeared. She made no promises she couldn't keep. Instead, she listened, she learned, and she planned. With her council, she began reforms, reducing taxes, establishing a court system to handle grievances, creating a civilian oversight committee for palace guard, and opening the palace treasury records for public review. "Transparency," she told her advisors, "is the antidote to corruption." She also brought Mama Kemi from the sacred forest. giving the old woman a place of honor as the kingdom's chief spiritual advisor. The ancient herbalist walked the palace halls with the same ease she had walked the forest, becoming beloved by servants and nobles alike. "You've done well, child," Mama Kemi told Amara one evening as they watched the sunset from the palace balcony. "You become the queen I knew you could be." "I had a good teacher," Amara replied, taking the old woman's hand. "You had many teachers," Mama Kemi corrected. "The forest taught you strength. Zainab taught you what not to become. Your father taught you compassion. Your mother taught you grace. But the final lessons, those you taught yourself." Finally, on the first anniversary of her return, Amara's coronation took place. Unlike traditional ceremonies where only nobles attended, the palace grounds were open to everyone. Thousands of common people stood shoulder to shoulder with nobles, all equal in this moment. Amara wore not the heavy crown Zainab had commissioned, but her mother's simpler crown, elegant, meaningful, and light enough to wear with dignity. She made her oaths not just to the ancestors and the nobles, but to the people themselves. "I promise to rule with wisdom, not whim, to lead with compassion, not cruelty, to listen to the voiceless, protect the vulnerable, and build a kingdom where power serves the people, not the other way around. I cannot promise perfection. I will make mistakes. But I promise to learn from them, to accept counsel, and always choose justice over revenge, mercy over cruelty, and hope over fear." As the crown was placed on her head, the people erupted in genuine celebration, not the forced festivities of Zainab's reign, but real joy and real hope. That night, alone in her chambers, Queen Amara stood before the portraits of her parents. "I hope I've made you proud," she whispered. "I hope the kingdom you love will flourish again." In the distance, from the sacred forest, a leopard's roar echoed across the land, a sound of approval from the spirits that had protected her for so long. Queen Amara smiled. Her journey from abandoned princess to warrior to queen was complete, but her work, the work of healing a kingdom and becoming the leader her people deserved, was just beginning, and she was ready. The end. Far away, in a small border village, a woman who had once been a queen learned to draw water from a well, to grind grain, and to accept charity from neighbors. Some days she raged against her fate. Other days, she worked in silence, wondering if perhaps the powerless life she now lived was teaching her what power should have been used for all along. But that, perhaps, is a story for another time. Thank you for joining us on Princess Amara's incredible journey from betrayal to triumph. What did you think of Queen Amara's decision to exile Zainab instead of executing her? Was it mercy or weakness? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love this epic African tale of survival, justice, and redemption, make sure you're subscribed to African Tales by Zion. Hit that like button and share this story with friends who love powerful storytelling. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next incredible story. Until next time, may your path be guided by wisdom and your heart by justice.